Like Montreal, has a new coach. Like I might be the new coach of Montreal in 2 weeks. Like they have a new coach all the time, and they always have, oh yeah, we're playing a new system. They're like, they have a bunch of 20-year-old players and kids on the pitch. Anyone that's good, they sell and they trade for money all the time. Like it's a real disaster. But they hit a new low tonight, getting eliminated by the Forge.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
Really would love to know what Jawan Jennings is after. If I were San Francisco, I'd hate to lose him. Not that I think he's ever going to be their best receiver on this football team, but you have a lot of question marks, right? We don't know how good Ricky Pearsall is yet.
We are asking ifs, if Ayuk comes back and is healthy, if McCaffrey can be healthy, all these things. So why not just take the thing that works and just keep it?
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
His run in Salt Lake is over, but obviously the intimidation of a guy that's been around that long in Gundy and in this guy, if you look at their cases, they're very similar. It's been going on forever, right? And it's time for a change, I think, in Stillwater and in Salt Lake. I got to be honest with you. And believe me, if they lose again, they're going to get rid of him.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Devin Booker, do you know, in those 2 years, actually makes more in his salary than the entire Miami Marlins payroll this year, which I think is at like $62 million. That's a 72.5. I'm just doing the math really quickly. So one guy is worth more than 25, but we know how bad the Miami Marlins is. But hey, I just talk hoops.
Betting above the rim, only on Sport.
Good morning. Welcome to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. I'm Craig Mish. Great to be back with you. It's our midweek edition of the show, and boy, do we have a lot to review after a wild scene last night in Atlanta at Major League Baseball's All-Star Game decided by a swing-off. We'll get to the latest on that as well. We'll also touch on the latest in the National Basketball Association and, of course, hit on some Major League Baseball futures odds for the second half of the season. Give you the latest in the NFL and cover it all for you here on the program with some WNBA action today as well. Very light day as far as action in sports, but very heavy day as far as news. So let's get right to it. Last night, the National League in the All-Star Game ended up taking a 6-0 lead, but the American League stormed all the way back to the point where it came down to the final strike and the final out of the game. And the game ended up being tied at 6. Now, yes, a lot of things happened during the game last night, and it was a fun game. It was exciting. A lot of, comebacks. We saw home runs. Pete Alonso hit one. But this thing in the end came down to what we've never seen before. Major League Baseball decided that last year, at the end of any tied game in the All-Star Game, 3 players on each side, American League and National League, would come down to a swing-off. And the National League ends up winning it thanks to Kyle Schwarber's couple of home runs in what we would call the swing-off. So you see the final there, 6-6. But the NL takes the win in this mini home run derby that they had after the game. Schwarber, in fact, no stranger to the home run derby, was one of the selections by Dave Roberts, which had to be made on Monday. So Roberts submitted 3 players, and so did Aaron Boone, and they ended up competing to win the championship. Now, the one hiccup to this whole thing was the fact that one of the players that Roberts chose on the NL side was Eugenio Suarez, and Suarez was hit by a pitch, so Miami's Kyle Stowers had to participate, and he ended up hitting a home run in the little mini home run derby swing-off as well. Was I clear enough with everything? I'll see if I can untangle some more. But first, here's Dave Roberts on having to switch out Suarez in the swing-off.
You know what? I was hoping we didn't have a home run swing-off. And then, obviously, Eugenio got hit in the hand, so I had to replace him with my starfish. Kyle Stowers. That's his new nickname, Starfish. So I had to replace him, and just kind of thinking about the lineup, and I was going to save Alonso for the 3-hole, and I was kind of going to get Stowers in there first. And I was trying to get the format down. And Schwartz, I was talking to Kyle, and he was like, I'd never hit on the field anymore, so hopefully I can take batting practice and hit a homer, on the field and not just in the cage. So he came up huge. Dino Ebel, our pitching coach, came up huge. So it was a lot of fun. And the cool thing is that we got to see the players were all into it, too, which was fun.
And that's why a lot of people last night and this morning asking why Shohei Ohtani, why Aaron Judge not part of the swing off. Well, the players were deemed to be not involved in it, so there was no reason for them to stick around and participate after the first 9 innings ended. Now, maybe that's something that changes in the future, but those players were picked the day before. One of them was Schwarber. Again, no stranger to the Derby. He's been fantastic in ones that he has participated in. And now he ends up getting the All-Star Game MVP. He did nothing in the first 9 innings of the game, but ends up hitting a couple in that extra frame, so to speak. Here's Schwarber on the fun but bizarre ending last night for Major League Baseball.
Hey, Kyle, usually you take BP before the game, not after it. Can you kind of describe the degree of difficulty in what you just had to do there?
Yeah, interesting. A little nervous. I think the first swing was kind of the big one. I was just really trying to hit a line drive versus try to hit the home run. And usually that tends to work out, especially in games. But I was just saying there's a lot of guys who are way more deserving of this award. But I'm just happy that it's going to be we get a win with the National League and that it's going to be coming home with us to Philly.
To your right, Kyle.
Kyle, congratulations. First Philly, I think, to win this award since 1964, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
A lot of great players in the organization. Could you reflect on that?
Yeah, it's an honor. I mean, I think just being able to be here at the All-Star Game and representing the organization and, our city and the team, my teammates, it never goes, not noted. And it's a great honor, and hopefully, it's going to be, something that you're going to hold for. I mean, it's going to be something that you can hold on to for forever. But hopefully, it'll be a cool moment there for the Phillies for a little while.
And Philadelphia will host the All-Star Game next year. No baseball today or tomorrow. The season picks back up on Friday. All right, National Football League training camps opening all across the country. Rookies reporting this week, and then the veterans on the weekend. Sauce Gardner's got some more money as he reports. 4 years, $120 million, signs a contract extension, $30.1 million per year. You may remember Garrett Wilson just signed a contract extension as well. So despite the Jets' projected low win total and low projections overall for the season, the Jets have signed 2 mega players to mega contracts as training camp is set to open for them. Meanwhile, sweepstakes games have been banned officially in the state of California. The California Public Safety Committee has approved a bill to ban it, and it was an easy vote. The Senate voted 6-0 in favor of the bill, and this comes 1 week after the government organization decided to put this through as well. And needless to say, sweepstakes banned. We'll see if daily fantasy continues in California. The Massachusetts Gaming Commission is debating a potential $15,000 civil administration penalty for FanDuel. They accepted 7,000 bets on the LPGA in 2023 through 2024, and it was a gaming commission violation. And to make sure that they did not put it in the correct terms, right now, they may have to pay a fine for that as well. Meanwhile, on the golf course, we're going to have the British Open this weekend. Kind of a rare instance here with no baseball going on, but we do have some golf, and it starts overnight here in the United States, of course, because they're playing across the pond. Scotty Scheffler is the current favorite. By the time we're on tomorrow morning, we're going to have some major movement in terms of the odds because more than half of the field will have played. Jon Rahm, Rory McIlroy, Bryson DeChambeau, and Xander Schauffele, 25-1. Scheffler, by the way, was very thoughtful with the media, talking about not just potentially having to explain why success isn't just simply on the golf course, but went deeper into his family and how important that is to him as well.
I'm not here to inspire somebody else to be the best player in the world, because what's the point? This is not a fulfilling life. It's fulfilling from the sense of accomplishment, but it's not fulfilling from a sense of like the deepest, places of your heart. There's a lot of people that make it to what they thought was going to fulfill them in life, and then you get there and all of a sudden you get to number one in the world, and then they're like, what's the point? And I really do believe that, because what is the point? You're like, why do I want to win this tournament so bad? That's something that I wrestle with on a daily basis. It's like showing up at the Masters every year. It's like, why do I want to win this golf tournament so badly? Why do I want to win the Open Championship so badly? I don't know, because if I win, it's going to be awesome for about 2 minutes. And then we're going to get to the next week, and it's going to be like, hey, you won 2 majors this year. How important is it for you to win the FedEx Cup playoffs? And it's just like, we're back here again, So we really do. We work so hard for such little moments, and I'm kind of a sicko. I love putting in the work. I love being able to practice. I love getting out to live out my dreams. But at the end of the day, sometimes I just don't understand the point.
Right now, the WNBA All-Star Game looks like it could take a massive hit in the ratings. It's kind of, at this point, I would say, far-fetched to believe that Caitlin Clark is going to play. She left again with the same injury that she's had previously. She missed 5 games with a groin injury, suffered it again yesterday. Fever beat the Sun 85-77. Sparks beat the Mystics 99-80. Dearica Hamby had 26 points, and Mavericks center Derek Lively II had foot surgery to clear bone spurs. NBA season still a couple of months away. Rob Donalson talks some baseball with us next.
New to casinos and not sure what to play? Well, try Blackjack first. It has a lower house advantage compared to other table games, making it especially player-friendly. Now, go get lucky. See you in Las Vegas. Let's get lucky.
Seiya Suzuki and Pete Crow Armstrong is the first time the Cubs have ever had 2 players reach 25 home runs before the team's 95th game. I thought that was a stunningly odd statistic that you would have just thought, well, the Cubs, storied franchise, all these big superstars that they've had, and even superstar tandems, they've never been this good, and they continue to be that, man. They are just continuing to hammer the baseball. Pete Crow Armstrong, what an incredible trade that's worked out to be for the Chicago Cubs.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
Online casino expansion in the U.S. is extremely slow, a lot slower than I think we all would have thought, 5 years ago as sports betting took off. But you're going to start to see, I think, next year, a few more states kind of trickle into this. On top of Maine, you had Illinois kind of talk about it. Governor J.B. Pritzker pitched it as an idea to help cut down the budget deficit. Of course, we've got a weird tax fallout there.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
There are better opportunities out there for LeBron than the Lakers if this is how the Lakers are going to operate.
They really put Milwaukee as bad. I had to put my glasses on. Giannis may not be there. I'll tell you right now. New York!
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
All right, let's bring in Rob Donalson, of course, from from Underdog for the latest on Major League Baseball to go over everything that happened last night and what we would look for in the future. Rob, thanks for coming on the show. Look, I said last night on social media, I thought it was a very big win for Major League Baseball. We're all going to have things to complain about. But, Rob, the best way that I was thinking to describe it, I wouldn't say this on social media, but the best way that I could describe it, isn't it better that we're talking about baseball today and we're talking about a swing off than Kevin Durant's 15th team in 13 years? Like, I mean, to me, it's a little more refreshing to have baseball in the conversation than these transactions in the NBA or what's not happening in the NFL.
Yeah, and honestly, how many people talk about the Pro Bowl or how many people talk about the NBA All-Star game? I think that most people don't talk about it because they don't really try. And in Major League Baseball, you can't just go up there and not try. I mean, we saw Paul Skeens painting a 102 off the black last night and just throwing some wicked breaking pitches and striking out Aaron Judge and all these other types of dudes. And I think that's entertainment. And also, when you have these really dominant elite pitchers in a one inning vacuum, you can truly see what elite talent they actually have if they can just turn it loose. And I kind of like that. It's almost reminded me of like the NHL with the Four Nations face off to an extent.
Yeah, and NHL and Major League Baseball seemingly the ones that have it right, at least here for the moment. So we get a little break from baseball here, and the players need it. I mean, especially these all-star players who were there last night until like past midnight in Atlanta. So there's no games today, no games tomorrow. It gives us some time to digest the odds for the second half, which are now locked in. The Tigers are the favorite to win the American League at plus 260, followed by the Yankees, Astros, and Blue Jays. Those are seemingly the favorites. Now, it is a tournament, Rob. Anything can happen. I don't want to dismiss Seattle, Boston, Tampa, or even anybody else. But looking at the board here, do you feel like the odds represent your favorites to win the AL?
I think the Tigers are going to be right there regardless because they have a young roster. The veterans that they have, obviously, they aren't going to deal away. And heck, they've even turned Javi Baez into a guy who's an all-star in Major League Baseball again. And the big thing with them, too, is they have a farm system and trade chips to get better at the deadline and even the small little areas that they may not be, the ultimate elite at in terms of their current roster. And so I think they're going to be right there. But aside from the Tigers, I truly believe that if the Jays don't make a move, or, if you go down the list, if the Red Sox, the Yankees don't make the right moves in a really competitive market this year, we're looking at a wide open AL. And I actually think there's plenty of teams outside of even the wild card picture right now that could actually rise to be a real playoff contender.
Yeah, I would agree. Now, the National League seems a little bit more clear cut than the American League, because if not Detroit, it's anybody. But in the NL, it does feel like it's a handful of teams: Dodgers, Phillies, Cubs, and Mets. Look, I mean, Rob, I got to give the Brewers a lot of credit for succeeding. I don't know that they're built to win a World Series, but they're seemingly built to make the postseason every year. San Diego's there at 17-1 as well. But it feels to me like it's going to be one of the four: Dodgers, Phillies, Cubs, and Mets to me. I don't know how you see it. AL, if it's not Detroit, I could see anybody. You're right. But NL, I think, is a little more sharp.
Yeah, and even when you look at the Cubs, I think this is going to be the most interesting team at the trade deadline because I don't think that anybody in that organization thought they'd be a buyer this year when it came to the trade deadline. But now all of a sudden you have a lot of really solid players in your outfield. And when you look down at their minors and their best prospects, you're looking at a host of outfielders. And I feel like they have the best trade chips of everyday prospects that they can go and get a haul in terms of legitimate starting pitchers, not just, I get it. Matthew Boyd turned into an all-star and he's having a great year. Colin Ray has been very serviceable. They've had a number of guys in that same boat, but I feel like if you can really kind of cultivate a playoff contender or even a World Series contender, they do have the trade chips to go out and get the best on the market. So it's really ultimately going to come down to whether or not the Cubs actually really want to go all in.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment too. All right, second half of the season, things significantly change, Rob, in a few weeks. Once the trade deadline comes and goes, you're going to start to see some crazy odds. It's not to say that we haven't seen some this year. Like when the Rockies were going through it, they were plus 300, plus 400 on some bets. But really, that's the big difference in baseball for August and September. You're going to start to see some massive odds for the haves and the have-nots.
Yeah, and ultimately there are going to be some teams that are tentative sellers or tentative buyers that have in the past. I mean, you look at the Mets last year, that was a tentative seller, and all of a sudden they rose to prominence on the backs of the guys that they had, a really young roster, but also some guys in that veteran lineup core of, Lindor and Alonso that really carried them throughout the playoffs. And I feel like there are a number of teams that kind of fit that bill. I look at the Twins, for example, and they're only going to get more and more healthy, but that's not a team that's really going to be looking to overly sell. They're probably just going to sit on their hands. And I feel like the roster they have has kind of underperformed in large part due to injuries. But when you look at the second half of the season, who's to say they can't go on that 10-0 run like the Red Sox and the Blue Jays just did?
Yeah, 10 games in a row. That'll put you back in the mix for any team in baseball. All right, so the regular season home run champ right now is Cal Raleigh, but he's not the favorite to win the home run title in the end. I'm guessing because he's a catcher and wear and tear. Ohtani's plus 650. The last person you want to bet right now on the board is Kyle Schwarber after seeing last night. You're not getting any value there. Wait a few days, please, before you do anything with Schwarber. He's the most popular guy in baseball right now. Is it a two-player race here? Can Ohtani sneak in?
I do think it's a 2-horse race. Ohtani's trying to get geared up to fit back into this rotation somehow. I don't even know if that's the best of moves, but ultimately, I do feel like that would be kind of more of a crazy speculative one and a bigger name that has that long shot, view or optics, but isn't really there. I do think this is ultimately going to come down to Cal Raleigh and Aaron Judge, and I wouldn't be wanting to bet against Aaron Judge when it's all said and done.
Well, Rob, I know it's it's a strange dynamic what we saw last night in baseball, but I got to tell you, again, discussing it today is better than not. Usually Wednesdays are reserved for moving forward, but we're talking about last night as well. Thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, not a problem, and best of luck to you the rest of the second half here.
All right, thanks, Rob. Check Rob out over at Underdog. We'll take a quick time out here on the show. SportsGrid Sound Off up next. More SEC discussion. College football set to kick off in the SEC on the 30th of August. We'll hear from Kirby Smart, head coach of the Bulldogs, next.
New to casinos and not sure what to play? Well, try blackjack first. It has a lower house advantage compared to other table games, making it especially player-friendly. Now, go get lucky. See you in Las Vegas. Let's get lucky.
Seiya Suzuki and Pete Crow Armstrong is the first time the Cubs have ever had two players reach 25 home runs before the team's 95th game. I thought that was a stunningly odd statistic that you would have just thought, well, the Cubs, storied franchise, all these big superstars that they've had, and even superstar tandems, they've never been this good, and they continue to be that, man. They're just continuing to hammer the baseball. Pete Crow Armstrong, what an incredible trade that's worked out to be for the Chicago Cubs.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
Online casino expansion in the U.S. is extremely slow, a lot slower than I think we all would have thought, 5 years ago as sports betting took off. But you're going to start to see, I think, next year, a few more states kind of trickle into this. On top of Maine, you had Illinois kind of talk about it. Governor J.B. Pritzker pitched it as an idea to help cut down the budget deficit. Of course, we've got a weird tax fallout there.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
There are better opportunities out there for LeBron than the Lakers if this is how the Lakers are going to operate.
They really put Milwaukee as bad. I had to put my glasses on. Giannis may not be there. I'll tell you right now. New York!
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
And welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Southeastern Conference Media Day is going on over the last couple of days. We're getting ready for the first week of college football, but the first big week in terms of the Southeastern Conference occurs on the 30th of August. Let's get a preview from a couple of coaches. It's time now for the SportsGrid Sound Off. One of the favorites once again to win the national championship are the Georgia Bulldogs. They're right there with everybody else and, of course, constantly competing in the Southeastern Conference. But new day and age in college football, young players coming in through NIL, development, it's completely changed the game. Kirby Smart with some very insightful thoughts on his squad going into the upcoming college football season and how development of the team that he had last year factors in to this year.
Yeah, first of all, you don't speed up development. That's a misnomer. So if you want to speed up development, then you're probably looking for shortcuts that don't exist. You want to develop somebody, it takes time, it takes reps. We can't replicate reps faster. We can't speed up a guy's transition. The transition it takes to become a good football player is different for every kid. And I've been fortunate, for the last 19 years of college football to learn that and learn that it takes what it takes, and it takes time to grow those players. Now, I wish I could speed it up. I really wish I could speed it up this year, but there's no remedy or magic potion or we're going to go get this guy out of the portal or that guy out of the portal. It's all about continuity and what you do with each team. You're seeing that across college football where there's beginning to be a little more parity, I think, and it's probably going to continue to go that way. So who does the best with what they have, which is what I enjoy about the game.
Makes a lot of sense. Bulldogs have a very tough schedule going into the season. Probably doesn't get any tougher, though, than the Texas Longhorns. How about their first game of 2025? August 30th, Texas goes to Ohio State. Wow, that's a blockbuster for a first game. So we had to get a preview. Here's head coach of the Texas Longhorns, Steve Sarkisian, on the showdown.
Yeah, I think, the competitor in you loves the opportunity because it's like, well, that's the next chance is the same sting that you felt. The reality of it is when you really dive deep into it, we're different teams again. We're a different team. They're a different team. A lot of new faces, transfers, different players, different coaches, different coordinators. And so once you get over the emotion of being excited to play that same team again and you drill down to the tactical part of it all, which is, man, we got a lot of work to do. This is a very talented team. They got new offensive coordinator, new defensive coordinator. We've got some new coaches that we're getting acclimated to what we're doing. We've got new faces, new players that we're going to be counting on, some transfers and things. You start to shift the focus away from the emotional side and you start drilling into, this is going to be a good team. It's going to be a tough environment. We're going to need to play good football that day to come out on top. And so that's where our focus goes to. And I think our players in the same vein. The competitor in you is easy. Yeah, we want to go win that game. We want to go avenge the loss. But the reality is this is a whole new year and different set of circumstances obviously on the table, but obviously recognizing and respecting that this is a heck of an opponent. It's going to be a great challenge.
Should be the best game in college football, at least on the schedule on Saturday. Now, before we get to Saturday the 30th, we've got to take care of business on Friday, August 29th, and that will be the marquee matchup between Auburn and Baylor. Hugh Freeze and company headed on the road in an incredible showdown that could potentially derail one team going into week 2 of the college football season. Here's Hugh Freeze on that matchup.
Hugh, talk about the difference in opening the season with a team like Baylor compared to maybe the last couple openers for you, and how much you think that could affect fall camp, or how much you've seen it in the spring, have an impact?
I think it's that game's vital. So it's important to our season to get off. We're going to be playing in a difficult environment against a really good football team that's well coached by Dave Aranda. So when you put all of that on paper, the importance of it, there's no question that our focus throughout fall camp should be heightened. And this is not a game that you open up with and you sleepwalk at all and expect to win. And that sense of urgency should be seen all throughout camp as we get ready for that one. So I kind of get excited about that. And I think our kids will follow.
In case you're wondering, Auburn 2.5-point favorites in that Friday night game as they open up the season at Baylor. Wow, a lot of point spreads to get to with some college football discussion in the coming week. Up next, Pat Evans joins us from Legal Sports Report. We'll talk about some of the minimum bets set in Illinois and also the very latest with Missouri getting ready to open up sports books in December. We'll be back with more NewsWire with Pat Evans of Legal Sports Report next.
last week, Luke Wilson reposted a picture of the Lions practicing, and he goes, "Please tell me this isn't their practice field. Do they practice in a public park?" And Farrell and Lodge, he said, no, they have a little facility, but it's open to the public. No, it's a public park. Like, it basically, like, there's like kids playing basketball, like,
yeah,
no, it's bad. I looked, I'm like, dear God.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this once? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The tennis players are just the worst. They're just the worst.
I do that after I get a parlay. I'm falling to the ground. I'm excited. I'm like praising the Lord. Win a parlay. Come on. You're allowed to celebrate.
I'd rather, it's okay if you hit a parlay, yes. But if you win the match, no. The player can't do that. The bettor can. It's as simple as that.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. I'm Craig Mish, joined by Pat Evans of Legal Sports Report. Get ready to dive into the latest, of course, in sports betting and everything going on across the country. In December, we've got sports betting opening up in Missouri, Pat. Some Missouri deadlines for some, it just looks like, I mean, I don't know what to call it red tape, but some clerical issues potentially. Give us the latest.
Yeah, so yesterday was the deadline for the applications for 2 untethered licenses in Missouri. Now, you'll recall that, Missourians went to the ballot box in November and said, yep, let's have sports betting. And that included tethered licenses for the 13 riverboat casinos in the state and the 6 professional teams. But also, the Missouri Gaming Commission has the right to allocate 2 untethered licenses. Kind of the thought back then was that those were hopeful inclusion by DraftKings and FanDuel, and they certainly spent a lot of money, over $40 million, on that ballot initiative. So, take that, and read into that what you might. But now, with that deadline pass, those are the only 2 applicants for that untethered license, untethered licenses, FanDuel and DraftKings. So I think those will be awarded. We know those will be awarded on August 15th. So we got another month before we know officially who's getting those licenses, but those are the 2 applicants. We also know Underdog has applied. So that was, they're in 1 state. They have a license in Ohio as well. They're active in North Carolina. So this will be their 3rd state to potentially be licensed in. The rest of those licenses, the 13 riverboat casino tethered license and the 6 sports teams license applications, are due next month if they want to launch on that December 1st launch date that has been confirmed by the regulators there in Missouri. So yeah, we're just kind of cruising along here in the show me state to get live. And sure, it is not the fastest rollout we've seen, as we've seen plenty of states get, passed in the legislature in the spring and then launched by the beginning of the football season. That's not happening here, but we'll see as we might get some more updates tomorrow as well. Cause I'm sorry, I've got a lot of deadlines to get through there in Missouri. We had the public comment period on the rules that, were open the last month. That deadline is passed for written comments. Tomorrow is a public hearing on the rules, so you'll see a lot of the stakeholders in the industry come around, try to make minor changes to the rules and things like that. So that'll be fun. We might get updates from regulators in terms of specific launch things or license applications and things like that. So we'll have more on that for you on Monday, Craig.
All right, fair enough. Let's get to California. They're trying to get rid of everything and not even have sports betting for them there in California. Those people who want to bet on sports, play daily fantasy, play in sweepstakes, all seeming to be going away this year.
It does seem like that, Craig. At least efforts to make that happen. Of course, the AG there finally ruled from a request in 2023 on daily fantasy sports. He said they're all illegal. That isn't legally binding, so there's no fallout yet. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens if fantasy operators pull out, they put up legal fights, things like that. The other side of it is in the legislature, there is a bill that would ban these sweepstakes operators. That passed its second committee yesterday, the Senate Public Safety Committee, 6 votes to 0. So it is just moving swimmingly along there in California. It is facing opposition from the industry, the sweepstakes industry associations. There's 2 of those. They're saying, hey, this is not great. The way you went about this is not how things should be done. It was in a separate bill that was not related to sweepstakes, passed the assembly earlier this year, and then once in the Senate, language to ban the sweepstakes operators was put into an unrelated tribal gaming compact bill. So we'll see what happens. The tribes are behind it. They're fully supporting it. So you're going to see a lot of friendly legislators just go ahead and vote for it there. We'll see what happens. It will then have to go after the Appropriations Committee to the full Senate floor, then back to the Assembly for concurrence, because there is a major change, of course, completely changing the language of a bill. And then we'll see what happens. There was kind of some clarity yesterday that there needs to be a few amendments made to it still, probably. They do make it clear that it is only targeting dual currency sweepstakes, the things you can play for free, but then you can also buy sweepstakes coins or other, whatever they call their currency to use in gambling style, casino style, or sports betting style betting games. So it'll be interesting again to see how much of this passes, how much doesn't. You've seen several other states legislators say, hey, this isn't okay, ban it. I think it was 6 other states. And, in Louisiana, the governor vetoed it and said, we don't need this. The regulators can handle this on their own. 2 days later, they sent 40 cease and desist letters to sweepstakes operators and other offshore gambling operators. So again, this is not past California yet. It's not illegal yet. Might not be, of course. Anything can happen in the legislative process, but it is moving, getting through 2 committees unanimously. So very interesting update in the sweepstakes world in California.
And finally, let's get to the bare minimum is what we should be calling it. BetMGM has decided to require a minimum wager in Illinois. And, I don't, Pat, I was thinking the reason why they wanted to do this was they weren't willing to take bets for $1 on these crazy parlays. I'm probably wrong about that. They'll probably take anybody's buck. There has to be something that I'm missing here.
Yeah, so this is kind of it is related to the minimum or the tax that was introduced this year from the legislative session on just bets in Illinois. Now, if you recall, last year, Governor J.B. Pritzker signed into law a tiered tax system up from the flat 15% tax on sports betting revenue, starting at 20% and up to 40%. Now, only 2 operators, FanDuel and DraftKings, meet that 40% threshold, and they're paying on that. Well, this year in the legislative session, the lawmakers said, hey, they're still getting, they're not paying enough. We need more money. We need to do this. So they put in a 25-cent per bet tax on the first 20 million wagers from operators. Once over that 20 million bet mark, it goes up to 50 cents. Now, only 2 operators, DraftKings and FanDuel, have taken more than 20 million bets in a year. So they're up there. And you'll recall that DraftKings and FanDuel both implemented a 50-cent per bet tax, or fee, I guess it would be, on consumers, because they can't really absorb all that taxes that they've been shot up the past 2 years. Fanatics, they've introduced a 25-cent per bet fee. And so now you're seeing BetMGM introduce this $2 minimum bet, $2.50 minimum bet. Hard Rock did a $2 minimum bet, or I think I might have those reversed. But either way, you're seeing different ways to kind of, shield themselves and help absorb these taxes that Illinois is increasing greatly. which is kind of interesting because, once those per bet taxes passed this year, you saw the Sports Betting Alliance say, hey, now wait a second. A better way to do this to make more money off this industry would have been to legalize online casino, which, heading into the session, Governor Pritzker said, that was a way to potentially help offset the budget deficit. And rather than do that, they went ahead and introduced more taxes for the sports betting operators, which, sports betting is already a pretty thin margin industry. So these operators need to do something. So why don't we try to, either put fees on there or just make it worth the while for the operators to say, hey, we're taking your bets. We need something to squeeze out of it versus, to your point, $1 for a parlay.
Right.
So yeah. Anyway, a lot of things happen in Illinois, and I don't think this will be the end of kind of how operators are trying to figure it out.
Yep, definitely so. Pat, great to see you. Have a great rest of your week. Thanks for coming on NewsWire. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks as always, Craig.
Some very thoughtful words from Scotty Scheffler on the upcoming British Open. He indeed is the favorite going into tomorrow/tonight's tee-off the Open Championship, but we thought we would bring in Brady Kannon for the final word on who potentially could win this thing. Always a little bit of a wild card in the Open. We'll see who ends up getting it done and give you all the odds coming up next here on NewsWire. Of course, here on SportsGrid, plenty of great golf coverage coming up for you this weekend, all throughout Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Get locked right here as they get ready to tee off overnight. We'll be back with more NewsWire next.
Last week, Luke Wilson reposted a picture of the Lions practicing, and he goes, please tell me this isn't their practice field. Do they practice in a public park? And Farrell and Lodge, he said, no, they have a little facility, but it's open to the public. No, it's a public park. Like, it basically, like, there's like kids playing basketball, like, yeah, no, it's bad. I looked, I'm like, dear God.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun. I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The tennis players are just the worst. They're just the worst.
I do that after I get a parlay. I'm falling to the ground. I'm excited. I'm like praising the Lord. Win a parlay? Come on. You're allowed to celebrate.
I'd rather, it's okay if you hit a parlay, yes. But if you win the match, no. The player can't do that, the bettor can. It's as simple as that.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. I'm Craig Mish, joined by Brady Kannon for the latest on the Open Championship this weekend, which really begins tonight. Brady, what time exactly is tee-off? I'm guessing for you, it's like 2 in the morning, and for us here on the East Coast, I think it's like 4 in the morning. Is that right?
No, it's even earlier than that. I believe it's 10:35 p.m. Pacific time, which would be 1:35 a.m. Eastern time. I believe
Wow.
that is when the first T-ball will be struck, and I think it's former champion Padraig Harrington who will be teeing off in that very first group later this evening.
That's crazy. Wow, 10:30 p.m. for you could actually watch the first round. For me, no, don't think I'm staying up for that. 2 nights in a row. I had to stay up till midnight last night here to watch the swing off. All right, so let's take a look at the Open Championship odds here. Very, very obvious who should be favorite here. Okay, so it's Scotty Scheffler, Rory McIlroy, and sneaky John Rahm is seemingly playing better. Bryson DeChambeau's 20-1. Xander Schauffele 25-1 as well. So, question number 1, Brady, will it be a favorite to win the Open Championship? And then if your answer is no, who?
Yeah, I like John Rahm, and I'm not alone. A lot of people like John Rahm this week, and I think it makes sense because you look at the short prices of Scotty Scheffler and Rory McIlroy, and then you have what I think is the second best player in the world in Rahm at a number, in double digits, 12-1, 13, 14, maybe even 15-1 if you find it out there or if you got him early. And so I think there's some value, or at least perceived value, on John Rahm. And he would be my choice. He's been a fantastic links player his entire career. He's won the Irish Open twice. He's finished runner-up in the British Open. He's been top 7 in the British Open in 3 out of the last 4 years. So I think Rahm is the guy at the top of the board. And by the way, Craig, you recall, he was outstanding at the U.S. Open at Oakmont. He just couldn't make a putt. He was 4th in that field for strokes gained tee to green. He played beautiful golf from tee to green all week long. He just couldn't hole a putt, and he ended up still finishing 7th in that championship. So Rahm is a guy I have my eye on, certainly at the top of the board.
Yeah, I would agree. I think Rob's played probably the most sneaky good golf over the last month as well. All right, you got some good head-to-head matchups for us going into this?
I do. I played 3 matchups, and this is interesting. I took Scotty Scheffler to beat Rory McIlroy, and I laid minus 160 there. I think that price is pretty readily available. I've seen minus 165, but a lot of people think this is just an automatic for Rory McIlroy because he's playing at home, where he grew up. I think a home game in golf is very difficult. You mentioned Scotty Scheffler's comments. I just thought that was, this guy is just incredible how brutally honest he is on the podium and his perspective on life and the game. And I think that plays into the handicap, why you would want to back the guy. But I laid the price on him over Rory head-to-head. I took Russell Henley plus 120 over Matt Fitzpatrick, which that looks to be a pretty good matchup. I think both of those guys will contend this week. And then I took, this is one I really like. I took Jordan Spieth minus 135 over Justin Rose. I think a lot of people are fired up about Justin Rose. He played very well last week at the Scottish Open, obviously got to a playoff at the Masters. I'm not so sure if history is going to repeat itself here, but who's the best Open Championship player over the last 10 years? Jordan Spieth. He's won it before. He's never missed a cut here. He is excellent at this championship, and I think he's going to show up again. I even have a ticket on him to win it. We'll see.
Wow. Now Harrington, you said tees off first. If I'm not mistaken, this is somebody that has won back-to-back Open Championships, and so that's seemingly very difficult. I remember when Xander won last year was one of the more exciting finishes that we had in a major. Do you think he's got a shot here?
I do. I think Xander's a little bit under the radar, and a lot of people are saying, hey, if you can get this guy at 25-1 or better, that number has drifted too high, and it's a good price on obviously one of the best players in the world. I just don't know. He has been so pushed back and behind schedule because of that injury that he had earlier this season. I mean, obviously he's in good form. He finished top 10 last week at the Scottish Open, and he's had other top 10 finishes this year. I don't know if he's quite ready to the level of being able to win a major championship again, like he was last year twice. I just don't think he's to that spot just yet, but he could absolutely surprise 2 of our well-respected colleagues, Cam Stewart and Keith Stewart, both played Xander Schauffele to finish top 10 in this championship. And I think that's a pretty darn good bet.
Yeah, I think so too. All right, so Brady, I think the course is something that we haven't really discussed all that much here. And, certainly the weather always plays a factor in the Open Championship. Are we thinking that that will be a factor at all this weekend?
Yeah, it's kind of good news, bad news. The good news is I don't think we're going to get much wind. We're seeing maybe 14 miles an hour is kind of a tipping point on Thursday, I believe, later this evening. But basically, 10 to 15 miles an hour throughout the week it is a seaside location, so that can turn on a dime. And 10 to 15 miles an hour when you're seaside can turn into gusts of 20 to 25. But I don't think the wind is going to be that much of a factor. What is a factor, however, is we're expecting rain almost throughout the championship. And I don't know if it's going to be a deluge. I don't know if it's going to be heavy. But I do believe we're going to get some moisture kind of on and off throughout this championship. Hopefully it doesn't soften up the course too much, because you know what that does to a golf course. It kind of makes it too easy, and it turns this thing in a direction that we probably all don't want it to go. So hopefully the rain is not too impactful, but it is going to come. And I expect that you're going to want guys that play good in, inclement weather. And one of those guys I have on my card that I think is good at that is the Scotsman, Robert McIntyre.
Yeah, McIntyre, of course, with a really good showing at the U.S. Open. Brady, great to catch up with you. Enjoy all the action this weekend. We'll see you again next week.
Can't wait. Thanks, Craig.
All right, Brady Kannon getting set to fire up his football contest show as well here on SportsGrid. NFL season a couple months away. We'll be right back.
Last week, Luke Wilson reposted a picture of the Lions practicing, and he goes, "Please tell me this isn't their practice field. Do they practice in a public park?" And Farrell and Lodge said, no, they have a little facility, but it's open to the public. No, it's a public park. Like, it basically, like, there's like kids playing basketball, like, yeah, no, it's bad. I looked, I'm like, dear God.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all. It's
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun. I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The tennis players are just the worst. They're just the worst.
I do that after I get a parlay. I'm falling to the ground. I'm excited. I'm like praising the Lord. Win a parlay? Come on. We're allowed to celebrate.
I'd rather, it's okay if you hit a parlay, yes. But if you win the match, no. The player can't do that, the bettor can. It's as simple as that.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
What an intriguing night in baseball last night to see the swing off, but something else happened during the game, in case you missed it. We'll touch on that as well. Also, could a very prominent college football player be back in college football next season? And the Indiana Hoosiers fans and collegiate athletes speak. They want their mascot back, and they get it. It's time now for some last licks. A lot of issues with this second round picks in college football and some first round picks as well, but always seemingly same teams involved, right? The Bengals. Bengals can't ever sign their picks. I don't know. And even sign their players. It seems like they have issues signing them too. All right. So Shamar Stewart is a member of the Cincinnati Bengals in name only, unsigned, like a lot of players still are in the NFL with training camps opening. And players actually have options now, by the way, if they don't sign with their NFL team. So Shamar Stewart, apparently, I haven't heard much from him, but apparently Stewart may be interested in returning, get this, to Texas A&M to play out one more season because he can't get a deal done with the Bengals. And if that ends up happening, because of the new rules in college football, he could potentially be paid, right? Couldn't he get another NIL deal to go back to college football and get the money that he's not getting in the NFL and then go back into the NFL draft again? Wow, this would be unprecedented if he does return to the Aggies. And I'm sure a lot of other players who were drafted in the second round of the NFL draft are thinking that as well. Remember, there's several that are still unsigned with training camps opening this week. So could this be something that changes the game in college? I would guess that this would be the only year the National Football League will allow this to happen. Players who are drafted unsigned and you get to go back to college football. I got to think that this is going to change if this ends up happening. By the way, hasn't happened yet. But if it does, get ready for a rule change in the National Football League. All right, the Indiana Hoosiers, what a great season they had last year in college football. Well, the fans have spoken. There was an online petition to bring back their mascot from the 1950s. These kids, how did these kids even know to do this? It's pretty impressive. So they signed a petition, they got a lot of signatures, and the university made the announcement official yesterday that their mascot, because did you really think about it? Did they really have the bison? Do you even know that this was a mascot of Indiana? I did not. It's always a Hoosier, right? So the bison is back roaming the sidelines with their first game coming up on August, I believe it is the 29th. Back in college football again, the announcement officially made yesterday. It just goes to show you, for those of you who are college students, maybe you're streaming the show right now, you're thinking, there's something that I've always wanted. Get yourself a petition, get it signed by a lot of your schoolmates, and maybe your university will actually listen. Because the bison is back for the upcoming college football season. Mascots are definitely more popular than they ever have been before. So get ready for the mascot, the bison, to be back for the first time in, I think it is almost 5 decades. Back in college football for the first game. Who's going to be in the suit? That's always the big question for me. All right, now the All-Star game was a big win yesterday for Major League Baseball. They had 9 innings of great play, but also during the game, in case you missed it, they honored Hank Aaron, who, of course, broke Babe Ruth's home run record with 715 home runs, which was later broken by Barry Bonds. There's a debate on that. I'm not going to do that here on the show today. Definitely not. That'd be too long of a debate. So Hank Aaron breaks the record and, of course, passed away several years ago. And last night during the game, they honored Hank Aaron by, honestly recreating the home run that he hit to break the record. And it was such a cool display for people that were there, but also looked really good on television. Fox, I thought, did a great job with that as well. Also, Hank Aaron's wife, the widow, who is, of course, in the stands as well, had a chance to witness it. Hank Aaron, certainly one of the greatest baseball players of all time. It was a great moment, I think. And if you're going to give a grade to the All-Star game last night, I think it would probably have to be A+. Just well done all around in Atlanta. As I mentioned, All-Star game next year going to be in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. All right, that'll do it for our show today here on this Wednesday. Thanks again to Rob Donalson from Underdog for coming on. Also, Pat Evans from Legal Sports Report. And also, thanks to all of you for watching our coverage of the British Open in advance this weekend. Brady Kannon will be a big part of that, so make sure you check it out. As Brady mentioned, if you're living on the West Coast, 10:30 Pacific tonight, 1:30 a.m. Eastern, you know what that means. It means when we do our show tomorrow morning here on NewsWire, we're going to have a lot of completions in round 1. Also, coming up next, Smiley Kaufman. He's got the latest on the British Open odds, followed by Pharrell Coast to Coast at 3 o'clock Eastern. Front Office Sports today, Game Time Decisions, In-Game Live, and then Sports Rage tonight. Looks like Luke and Frank are bailing on me on tomorrow's show, on Thursday's show. But I'll be back here with all the British Open action and more British Open action and even more British Open action.